and just gently keep finding spots that will detach. And if you keep working it here and you're finding that it's not going to detach, there's a problem, or there's a screw, or there's something holding the case together. So I'm just inspecting that here, finding out what the problem is. Looks like all the screws are out, so the question is, why is this case not coming apart? Found another screw that might need to come out. And there's actually two little hex nuts right there that the wireless card screws into. Those actually come off, and they keep the top case attached to the bottom case and attached to the motherboard. That's a little trick of a DV6000. I had to edit out the 10 minutes of video of me trying to find that out, but that is the problem there. So once you get those two screws out, now we should be able to remove the top cover from the bottom cover very easily and expose the motherboard. So those two screws were holding it in. Now if we forced it open, we would have broke something. So take a little time and try to find those things if you have to. Now there's a few screws holding the motherboard on. Now, there's still some force holding it in. We don't want to force anything, so what we're going to end up doing is taking off the remote control holder, which is there in the bottom right hand corner of the computer, and that will allow us to pull the motherboard outwards instead of forcing it like I was doing before. There's four screws holding that in. That's going to come up, pull out, and now we can pull up the motherboard from that side. There we go. Make sure all your cables are disconnected, and then we can remove the motherboard. I like to take a vacuum here, and since you have these laptops open, this is a great opportunity to get the dust and dirt out. So I'm just using like a Stinger wet dry vac from Home Depot, smallest one that they have, the little tiny one, which has been a great investment for the shop. And I'm using the brush. Now let's get that motherboard back. We're going to have to pull off the processor and the CPU fan. I like to loosen these screws in like a star fashion, like you're removing a tire. so you're not putting too much pressure on the processor. Then we use a screwdriver to unlock the processor, pull it out. Check over the motherboard, make sure there's nothing else on the motherboard that we need. And once we determine that, grab the new motherboard and get started again. Now, I ordered this motherboard on eBay. The DV6000 motherboards have a model number right under the RAM. And if you do a search for that model number that's right under the RAM, I think it usually ends in like a 0001. There's a little white sticker there, you could see it. That will tell you which model number to get as a replacement. And we just do an eBay search for that, find the replacement, order from a trusted seller, and then usually get a pretty good deal on it. It beats buying it directly from HP. And what we're going to do is put some new thermal grease on the processor and the heatsink. If needed. Sometimes the heatsink will have a thin layer of metal rather than actual thermal paste, which is just another way of doing heat transfer from the processor to the heatsink. We're going to take a processor, make sure it's lined up. Make sure that the locking screw is set to unlock position before you put the processor in. Processor should just slide right in. Put a little pressure on the processor, then lock it with the locking screw. If you've never done that before, it's very easy. There's a little diagram above the actual screw that shows what position it should be in to be locked. Lock it up.